36. Celebrities who are still rotting in jail. Right now, by 2025. From red carpets to prison jumpsuits, these are the stories Hollywood never wanted you to hear. Imagine your favorite actor, singer, or athlete once adored by millions now locked away, their fame crumbling inside a cold cell. These 36 celebrities are not just behind bars in 2025, they are rotting there, their legacies stained forever. Some crimes will leave you speechless, others will make you furious. But all of them prove that no amount of money or fame can escape justice. Watch until the end, hit subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence, and prepare to be shocked beyond belief. Michael Jace. Michael Jace's name once carried the aura of reliability and authority. Fans of The Shield remember him vividly as LAPD officer Julian Lowe, a character marked by his calm demeanor, unwavering loyalty, and strong sense of justice. On screen, Jace projected stability, the very image of a protector of the law. But off-screen, hidden beneath that carefully constructed facade, lurked a darkness that would eventually end his career, his freedom, and his reputation. By 2025, his story stands as one of the most chilling examples of how fame and respectability cannot shield anyone from the weight of their own actions. On the evening of May 19, 2014, tragedy struck in Los Angeles. In the family's South Los Angeles home in front of their two young children, Michael Jace fatally shot his wife, April Jace. The murder was not only brutal, but public in its consequences. Neighbors heard the commotion, and the couple's sons bore witness to a devastating act that would scar them for life. When police arrived, Jace himself admitted to the crime, telling them directly that he had shot his wife. The confession removed any ambiguity, transforming a respected actor into a condemned criminal overnight. The trial was equally gripping and heartbreaking. Prosecutors described how Jace had harbored jealousy and anger, painting a portrait of a man whose private life contrasted sharply with his public persona. The court heard chilling testimony, including accounts from his own children, who were forced to relive the horror of seeing their mother's life taken before their eyes. In 2016, Michael Jace was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. The severity of the sentence reflected both the crime's brutality and the deep betrayal of trust from a man once admired by millions. Now, in 2025, Jace remains behind bars with the possibility of parole still decades away. At age 63, he faces the likelihood of spending the rest of his natural life in prison. Unlike other celebrities who might enjoy luxuries or leniency, Jace's incarceration is stark and unforgiving. Stripped of fame, money, and influence, he is now simply another inmate, his legacy permanently overshadowed by a single night of violence. What makes Jace's downfall particularly tragic is the duality it exposed: an actor praised for portraying integrity, yet privately consumed by rage and instability. Fans of The Shield continue to wrestle with this contradiction. Can one separate the art from the artist? Should the memory of a beloved character survive, or does it become forever tainted by the crimes of the man who played him? By being included in the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail as of 2025, Michael Jace serves as a grim reminder. His life arc, from the fictional badge of a trusted officer to the very real confines of a prison cell, underscores the reality that no one, regardless of status or talent, is immune from justice. His story is not just about a fall from grace. It is a cautionary tale about unchecked anger, domestic violence, and the devastating ripple effects of one irreversible decision. Suge Knight. Few figures in the history of hip-hop loom as large or as fearsome as Marion Suge Knight. In the 1990s, he was the co-founder and power broker of Death Row Records, the label that transformed rap into a dominant cultural force. Under his watch, Death Row released era-defining albums from Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac Shakur. Knight was more than just a businessman. He was an enforcer, a street figure whose intimidating presence became as legendary as the music his label produced. But behind the multi-million-dollar empire lay volatility, violence, and a pattern of chaos that eventually led to his downfall. By 2025, Suge Knight is no longer the kingpin of West Coast rap, but rather one of the most infamous inmates in the California prison system. Knight's life began to spiral long before his final incarceration. Allegations of intimidation, assaults, and ties to gang violence surrounded him for decades. The most enduring cloud over his name remains the unsolved 1996 murder of Tupac Shakur, who was both his friend and his label's brightest star. Although Knight has never been charged in connection to Tupac's death, whispers of his involvement have followed him relentlessly, fueling documentaries and conspiracy theories. Still, it wasn't those suspicions that sealed his fate. It was a shocking act of violence in broad daylight, nearly 20 years later. In January 2015, Suge Knight's volatile world came crashing down when he was involved in a fatal hit-and-run outside a fast food restaurant in Compton, California. Surveillance footage later revealed the harrowing scene. Knight's truck barreled over two men during a confrontation, killing Terry Carter, a longtime friend, and injuring filmmaker Cleabone Sloan. Knight claimed he acted in self-defense, saying he was being ambushed and feared for his life. But the evidence combined with his history of aggression painted a different story in court. After years of delays, Knight struck a plea deal in 2018, accepting a sentence of 28 years in state prison, 22 years for voluntary manslaughter, and 6 more for violating California's 3 strikes law. At the time of sentencing, Knight was already in failing health, relying on medical care for diabetes and blood clots. By 2025, he is serving his time at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego, with a projected release year of 2037. If he survives to see that day, he will be 72 years old. For the hip-hop community, Knight's fall is both tragic and symbolic. He embodied the raw, unfiltered power of West Coast rap at its peak, but also the unchecked violence that often lurked behind the music industry's glamorous surface. His story reveals the razor-thin line between influence and destruction. A mogul who once ruled the charts now spends his days confined to a cell, his empire dismantled, his legacy overshadowed by crime. By appearing in the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail in 2025, Suge Knight's presence carries weight. He is not just another celebrity felon, he is a cultural architect whose violent impulses ultimately consumed him. His saga is a stark reminder that no amount of fame, fortune, or fearsome reputation can shield a man from justice, and that even the mightiest can fall into the cold grip of prison walls. Corey Miller. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Corey Miller, better known by his stage name C-Murder, stood as one of the defining voices of Southern hip-hop. As a member of the No Limit Records dynasty founded by his brother Master P. Miller, sold millions of albums scoring hits like Life or Death and True Dogs. His gritty lyrics, often chronicling the struggles of street life, resonated with fans who saw him as a raw and unfiltered storyteller. Yet by 2025, his career has long since been eclipsed by an unrelenting reality. Miller is serving a life sentence in Louisiana State Penitentiary, one of the harshest prisons in America. The crime that ended his freedom occurred on January 12, 2002 at the Platinum Club in Harvey, Louisiana. A confrontation broke out and 16-year-old Steve Thomas, an aspiring rapper, was beaten and fatally shot. Witnesses pointed to Miller as the shooter. The case quickly gained national attention, not only because of the tragic loss of a young life, but also because a prominent rap star was standing accused. From the very beginning, controversy swirled around the investigation and trial. In 2003, Miller was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. That conviction was overturned in 2006 after it was revealed that prosecutors had withheld key evidence. But in 2009, he was retried, convicted once again, and sent back to Angola prison, where he remains today. His defense has consistently maintained his innocence, arguing that the case was built on shaky eyewitness testimony. In recent years, several witnesses even recanted, claiming they were pressured by authorities to identify Miller as the shooter. Despite these developments, appeals have repeatedly been denied, keeping the rapper behind bars. Support for Miller has not waned. His brother Master P has long fought for his release, citing injustices in the trial, while his ex-girlfriend Kim Kardashian joined criminal justice reform advocates in highlighting his case in 2020. They argue that systemic failures, coerced testimony, and racial bias contributed to his conviction. Yet, as of 2025, despite public campaigns and high-profile backing, C. Murder remains incarcerated, his legal avenues narrowing with each passing year. For fans, the tragedy lies not only in the crime, but in the devastating collision of talent and circumstance. Miller's career trajectory promised longevity. He had the charisma, the fan base, and the backing of a powerful label. But instead of growing into a hip-hop elder statesman, his story has become one of confinement, appeals, and uncertainty. His songs, once praised for authenticity, now serve as haunting echoes of a life derailed. Being included among the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail as of 2025, Corey Miller represents a cautionary tale about how quickly fame can dissolve into tragedy. His incarceration has sparked debates about justice, fairness, and the unforgiving nature of the legal system. For some, he is a convicted killer who must face the consequences of his actions. For others, he is a victim of a flawed process trapped in a system unwilling to admit mistakes. Either way, C. Murder's life is a stark reminder that behind every platinum plaque lies a human story, and sometimes that story ends not in glory, but in the silence of prison walls. R. Kelly. For decades, R. Kelly was revered as the undisputed king of R&B, with mega hits like I Believe I Can Fly, Ignition Remix, and Step in the Name of Love. He created anthems that defined weddings, graduations, and radio playlists across generations. His voice was soulful, his songwriting prolific, and his influence unmatched. Yet behind the chart-topping records and Grammys there existed a hidden empire of abuse, manipulation, and criminal acts that shocked the world once exposed. By 2025, Kelly is not a music icon, but inmate number 09627-1104, serving a 30-year federal sentence for sex trafficking and racketeering. The allegations against Kelly had circulated since the 1990s, but his fame and legal maneuvering allowed him to avoid conviction for years. In 2002, he was indicted on child pornography charges, but acquitted in 2008. Many believed his wealth and star power shielded him from accountability. That illusion crumbled in the late 2010s as Courageous Survivors and the documentary series Surviving R. Kelly 2019 brought decades of abuse into the spotlight. In 2021, Kelly was convicted in a New York federal court of running a criminal enterprise that preyed on underage girls and young women. In 2022, he was further sentenced to 20 years in prison in a Chicago federal case, though 19 of those years were ordered to run concurrently. The practical outcome: Kelly will not be eligible for release until 2040, at the earliest, when he will be well into his 70s. As of 2025, he is housed in a federal prison in North Carolina, far removed from the glamorous stages he once commanded. For many fans, the betrayal is profound. How could a man who inspired millions with uplifting lyrics hide such predatory behavior? For survivors, his imprisonment represents long overdue justice. Kelly's downfall is a devastating reminder of how unchecked power and celebrity status can enable abuse to fester. His inclusion in the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail is perhaps the most notorious. Once hailed as a musical genius, R. Kelly now stands as a cautionary tale, a fallen star whose crimes permanently overshadowed his art, leaving his legacy in ruins. Dave Meggett. Dave Meggett was once a household name in American football. As a dynamic running back and return specialist, he played for the New York Giants, New England Patriots, and New York Jets. He earned a Super Bowl ring in 1991, made the Pro Bowl in 1989, and became known for his electrifying speed on the field. But by 2025, Meggett's story is no longer about highlight reels and championships. It is about prison walls. He is serving a 30-year sentence in South Carolina for criminal sexual conduct and burglary, his once promising life consumed by repeated patterns of violence. Meggett's troubles with the law began in the 1990s, with multiple arrests for assault and misconduct. Despite his football success, he developed a reputation for off-field instability. The defining fall came in 2009 when he was arrested for sexually assaulting a college student in Charleston, South Carolina. Prosecutors revealed this was not an isolated incident, but part of a disturbing pattern spanning years. In 2010, a jury found him guilty, and he was sentenced to 30 years in prison without the possibility of parole until serving at least 25 years. As of 2025, Meggett remains incarcerated at Lieber Correctional Institution, his earliest possible release date set for 2034, when he will be in his 70s. The contrast is haunting. Once cheered by thousands in NFL stadiums, he now lives in near anonymity, remembered more for his crimes than his athletic achievements. Meggett's presence on the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail list is emblematic of wasted potential. He had the talent, the fame, and the platform to build a lasting legacy in sports. Instead, his repeated choices off the field destroyed not only his career but also the lives of his victims. His downfall is a sobering lesson about how fame cannot conceal violence and how justice eventually finds even those who once seemed untouchable. Darren Sharper. For years, Darren Sharper was celebrated as one of the NFL's most consistent and talented safeties. Drafted by the Green Bay Packers in 1997, he went on to play for the Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints, earning 5 Pro Bowl selections and a Super Bowl ring in 2010. His on-field intelligence, leadership, and game-changing interceptions made him a fan favorite. Yet beneath the accolades lay a chilling reality. By 2025, Sharper is no longer remembered for football glory, but for being one of the most notorious convicted predators in sports history, serving a 20-year federal sentence that has permanently destroyed his reputation. Sharper's downfall began with a series of disturbing allegations in the early 2010s. Investigators discovered a pattern spanning multiple states. He had been drugging women and assaulting them while they were unconscious. By 2014, reports emerged from California, Arizona, Nevada, and Louisiana, each painting a consistent and horrifying picture. The scope was staggering. Dozens of women had accused him, exposing a predator who used his celebrity status to disarm suspicion. In 2016, Sharper pleaded guilty to federal charges of distributing drugs with intent to commit rape. In addition, he entered guilty pleas in multiple state cases, creating a complex web of overlapping convictions. Prosecutors revealed that Sharper routinely slipped sedatives such as Ambien and Valium into drinks, turning nights out into predatory traps. The revelations shocked not just sports fans, but the wider public, forcing a painful conversation about trust, celebrity privilege, and hidden abuse. The federal court handed down a 20-year prison sentence, while state sentences were structured to run concurrently. For Sharper, this means he will remain behind bars until at least the mid-2030s. At 49 years old in 2025, his once bright future as a commentator, coach, or Hall of Fame candidate is gone forever. In fact, the Pro Football Hall of Fame clarified he will never be considered, despite his statistical achievements, because of his crimes. For the public, Sharper's story is among the most heartbreaking in sports. He had everything: fame, wealth, respect, and threw it away by pursuing criminal acts that left lasting scars on countless victims. His inclusion in the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail serves as a dark reminder that even the brightest stars can harbor monstrous secrets. Today, Sharper lives in obscurity within prison walls, his name permanently synonymous not with interceptions or championships, but with predation and disgrace. Nathaniel Glover. Nathaniel Glover Jr., better known by his stage name Kid Creole, helped lay the foundation for hip-hop. As a founding member of the legendary group Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Glover stood at the forefront of a cultural revolution in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Their hit The Message became an anthem, bringing social commentary and authenticity to rap music. Kid Creole and his peers weren't just entertainers, they were innovators who elevated hip-hop into a global phenomenon. Yet by 2025, Glover is far removed from music halls and applause. At 64 years old, he is serving a prison sentence for manslaughter, the tragic consequence of a violent street altercation. The incident occurred on August 1, 2017 in Midtown Manhattan. Glover encountered John Jolly, a homeless man who allegedly approached him. According to prosecutors, Glover became enraged, misinterpreting the man's behavior as a sexual advance. In a sudden fit of anger, he stabbed Jolly twice in the torso with a knife he was carrying. Jolly later died from his injuries. Glover fled the scene, but was quickly arrested after surveillance footage identified him. During questioning, he admitted to the stabbing but insisted it was self-defense, claiming he felt threatened. Prosecutors argued that his response was disproportionate and intentional. After years of legal proceedings in April 2022, Glover was convicted of first-degree manslaughter and sentenced to 16 years in prison with an additional 5 years of post-release supervision. As of 2025, he remains incarcerated at a New York State correctional facility. His projected release is sometime in the early 2030s, by which point he will be in his 70s. The fall is devastating from a pioneer of one of the most influential music groups in history to a convicted felon stripped of his legacy. Kid Creole's story is tragic, not only because of the crime itself, but because of what it symbolizes: the painful reality that even cultural trailblazers can stumble into personal darkness. His inclusion on the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail stands as a stark reminder that history's innovators are still human, flawed, impulsive, and subject to the full consequences of their actions. Jerry Harris. For a brief moment, Jerry Harris was a symbol of joy, positivity, and unbreakable energy. Rising to fame on Netflix's hit docuseries Cheer in 2020, Harris captured hearts with his megawatt smile, uplifting spirit, and inspiring story of resilience. To millions of viewers, he seemed like the embodiment of youthful ambition and possibility. But behind the cameras, Harris was living a double life that would shock fans and end his career. By 2025, the once beloved star of reality TV is serving a prison sentence, his name forever tainted by crimes that revealed the darkest misuse of influence and trust. In September 2020, Harris was arrested on charges of producing and possessing child sexual abuse material. The federal investigation, triggered by complaints from the parents of 2 underage boys, uncovered a disturbing pattern. Harris had used his fame to solicit explicit images and sexual contact from minors online. What made the case even more appalling was how quickly he fell just months after becoming a household name thanks to Cheer. In 2022, Harris pleaded guilty to 2 of the most serious charges: 1 count of traveling with the intent to engage in illicit conduct with a minor, and 1 count of receiving child sexual abuse material. The guilty plea spared him a trial, but sealed his fate. In July of that year, he was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 8 years of supervised release. The judge's ruling reflected both the severity of his actions and the betrayal of trust inherent in his celebrity status. As of 2025, Harris is serving his time in a federal correctional facility, his earliest possible release year hovering around the mid-2030s. For fans who once saw him as a beacon of positivity, the betrayal still stings. His inclusion on the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail is a bitter reminder that fame often hides private darkness. Harris's story stands as one of the most jarring falls from grace in reality television history, a cautionary tale about misplaced trust and the dangers of unmonitored fame. Amy Locane. In the 1990s, Amy Locane was on the cusp of stardom. Best known for her role as Sandy Harling on the hit TV series Melrose Place, she embodied the youthful glamour and intrigue of primetime drama. She also appeared in films like Crybaby alongside Johnny Depp, further cementing her reputation as a rising actress. But fame proved fleeting, and what remained of her career would be forever destroyed in a devastating tragedy. By 2025, Locaine's name is less associated with Hollywood stardom than with the courtroom and prison system. The turning point came on June 27, 2010, when Locaine, driving under the influence, caused a fatal car crash in Montgomery Township, New Jersey. Her vehicle collided with another car, killing Helene Seaman, 60, and severely injuring Seaman's husband. Witnesses reported that Locaine was speeding and had consumed alcohol before getting behind the wheel. The crash devastated an innocent family and transformed the actress into a symbol of the dangers of drunk driving. In 2012, Locaine was convicted of vehicular manslaughter and sentenced to 3 years in prison. After serving her time, she was released, but the legal saga did not end there. Appeals and disputes about sentencing fairness brought her case back to court multiple times. In 2020, a judge resentenced her to 8 years in state prison, citing the need for justice for the victim's family. Locaine's repeated appeals were rejected, and she remains incarcerated today. By 2025, Locaine is still serving out her sentence in New Jersey, with her earliest release possible in 2028. Now in her early 50s, she lives with the knowledge that one reckless night forever altered not only her life, but also the lives of those she harmed. Her presence on the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail list is unique. Unlike others convicted of deliberate violence, her crime was the result of negligence and irresponsibility. Yet the consequences remain equally devastating. Locaine's story is not one of malice, but of irreversible error. It reminds audiences that fame offers no shield from accountability, and that a single reckless choice can turn a rising career into a lifelong tragedy. Joe Son. For most viewers, Joe Son is a fleeting face in the world of entertainment. He appeared briefly in the 1997 film Austin Powers International Man of Mystery as Random Task, a parody of Odd Job from the James Bond franchise. He also pursued a short-lived career in mixed martial arts, competing in the early days of the UFC. But by 2025, Joe Son's name no longer belongs to cinema or sport. Instead, it is cemented as one of the most disturbing examples of a celebrity whose crimes define him entirely. The truth about Joe Son came to light in 2008, when DNA evidence linked him to a violent gang rape that had occurred back in 1990. The victim, who had been kidnapped and repeatedly assaulted, survived but carried lifelong trauma. For years, the case had gone unsolved until forensic advancements finally identified Son as one of the attackers. The revelation was horrifying. The actor-turned-fighter was not just a struggling entertainer, but a predator, hiding behind the masks of his careers. In 2011, Son was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for his role in the attack. What makes his case even more chilling is what happened afterward. While incarcerated, Son continued his pattern of violence. In 2011, he was convicted of murdering his cellmate, further extending his prison record and cementing his reputation as irredeemable. As of 2025, Joe Son remains in the California prison system, permanently cut off from the outside world. For those who remember his brief comedic role in Austin Powers, the contrast is startling. The goofy villain parody on screen was in reality a monster capable of unimaginable cruelty. His presence on the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail is not just a reminder of wasted potential. It is a stark, unsettling truth about how some individuals use fame as a smokescreen for darker realities. Joe Son's story is not about redemption or second chances. It is about the finality of justice for crimes so severe that society had no choice but to confine him forever. Skylar DeLeon. In the early 1990s, Skylar DeLeon was a child actor with dreams of Hollywood stardom. His most notable credit was a small appearance in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, a show beloved by millions of children around the world. But his acting career never flourished, and financial desperation pushed him toward darker paths. By 2025, DeLeon's name has become synonymous not with television fame, but with one of California's most shocking and brutal murder cases. The crime that sealed his fate was the 2004 murder of Tom and Jackie Hawks, a retired couple who were selling their yacht, the Well-Deserved. Posing as an interested buyer, DeLeon lured the couple into a meeting. Once aboard, he and accomplices overpowered the Hawks, forced them to sign over ownership documents, then tied them to an anchor and threw them into the Pacific Ocean alive. The brutality of the act stunned the nation, exposing DeLeon as both calculating and merciless. Prosecutors revealed that the motive was greed. DeLeon wanted the yacht as part of a plan to escape mounting financial troubles. The sheer callousness of killing two innocent retirees for material gain cemented his reputation as one of California's most cold-blooded killers. In 2009, DeLeon was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder for the Hawks couple and for an earlier killing of another man and sentenced to death. He is currently housed on death row at San Quentin State Prison in California. Legal delays mean that an execution date is unlikely anytime soon, but his fate is sealed. As of 2025, DeLeon sits in a cramped cell, his Hollywood dreams long gone, his notoriety now rooted in violence rather than fame. The contrast is almost cinematic, from a child actor in a colorful superhero show to a condemned murderer awaiting execution. His inclusion among the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail is perhaps one of the most chilling. DeLeon's story is not just about wasted potential. It is about how greed and desperation can drive a person to unspeakable evil. His tale stands as a warning of how quickly ambition can turn into destruction when fueled by ruthlessness. Danny Masterson. In the late 1990s, Danny Masterson was a household name. As Stephen Hyde on the hit sitcom That 70s Show, he won fans with his sarcastic wit, retro style, and cool demeanor. Alongside Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, and Topher Grace, he helped shape one of the most beloved ensemble casts of the era. But the charm that made him a television favorite concealed a darker reality. By 2025, Masterson is no longer a sitcom icon, but a convicted felon serving 30 years to life in prison for sexual assault. The allegations against Masterson first surfaced publicly in 2017 when multiple women accused him of raping them in the early 2000s, often after drugging their drinks. These reports gained momentum amid the #MeToo movement, which exposed systemic abuse across Hollywood. For years, Masterson denied the accusations, and his ties to the Church of Scientology, of which he was a member, added further controversy. Several of his victims claimed that the church discouraged them from reporting the assaults to police, fueling outrage about alleged cover-ups and intimidation. In June 2020, Masterson was formally charged with 3 counts of rape. The first trial in 2022 ended in a mistrial, but prosecutors retried the case, determined to secure justice for the women. In May 2023, he was found guilty on 2 counts of forcible rape and later sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. The sentence was one of the harshest given to a celebrity in recent years, symbolizing a turning point in how Hollywood handles abuse allegations. As of 2025, Masterson is incarcerated at a California state prison with no possibility of parole until serving at least 25 years. He will be in his 70s before he can even apply for release. His former castmates have distanced themselves, and his once lucrative career has been erased from memory. Even reruns of That 70s Show air with a shadow over them, as fans struggle to reconcile the beloved character with the man convicted of heinous crimes. Masterson's inclusion among the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail is significant, not just because of the crime, but because of the cultural impact. He represents a moment when Hollywood finally began holding its own accountable, proving that status, wealth, or powerful affiliations cannot silence victims forever. Ryan Grantham. For younger audiences, Ryan Grantham was a familiar face. He appeared in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, and the hit TV show Riverdale. With a boyish charm and promising career, he seemed destined to become a versatile actor. But in 2020, the world learned of a crime so shocking, it erased every trace of his previous work. By 2025, Grantham is serving a life sentence for murdering his own mother. On March 31, 2020, in their home in Squamish, British Columbia, Grantham shot his 64-year-old mother, Barbara Waite, in the back of the head while she played piano. The act was cold and deliberate. In his later confession, Grantham said he wanted to spare her the knowledge of the violent crimes he was planning. After killing her, he packed his car with guns, ammunition, and Molotov cocktails and set off toward Ottawa with an alleged plan to assassinate Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Authorities intercepted him before he could act further, preventing what could have been an even greater tragedy. During his trial in 2022, Grantham pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Prosecutors revealed disturbing details. The young actor had been consumed by depression, isolation, and violent fantasies, which he documented in a journal and videos. The court sentenced him to life in prison with no chance of parole for 14 years. As of 2025, Grantham is incarcerated in a Canadian penitentiary. He will be in his mid-30s by the time he becomes eligible for parole, but his career and reputation are permanently destroyed. His story resonates as one of the most tragic in Hollywood, a young talent whose mental health struggles spiraled into devastating violence. On the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail, Ryan Grantham's case is particularly haunting. Unlike older stars who squandered long careers, his downfall came at the very start of adulthood, leaving fans to wonder what drove a promising actor to commit such an irreversible act. Jonathan Copenhaver. In the MMA cage, Jonathan Copenhaver, better known by his chilling moniker War Machine, built a reputation as a relentless and brutal fighter. With raw aggression, an intimidating persona, and a brief stint in the UFC, he drew fans who admired his ferocity. But the qualities that earned him notoriety in combat sports spilled disastrously into his personal life. By 2025, War Machine is not remembered for highlight reel knockouts, but for a horrific assault that left his girlfriend nearly dead, and for the life sentence he is serving behind bars. The defining crime occurred in August 2014 when War Machine stormed into the Las Vegas home of his then-girlfriend Christy Mack, an adult film actress, and her male companion. What unfolded was a night of unrestrained violence. Mack was brutally beaten, suffering 18 broken bones, missing teeth, fractured ribs, and a ruptured liver, while the man with her was also assaulted. Mack narrowly survived by fleeing to a neighbor's home. The images of her battered body spread across social media, shocking the public and igniting outrage at the brutality of the attack. War Machine fled the state but was arrested a week later in California. His trial in 2017 revealed the full extent of his violent outbursts, not just that night, but throughout their toxic relationship. After hearing harrowing testimony from Mack and others, the jury convicted him of 29 felony counts, including kidnapping, sexual assault, and attempted murder. The judge imposed a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 36 years. This means his earliest release date would be 2053, when he would be nearly 70 years old. By 2025, Copenhaver remains in a Nevada prison, still infamous as one of MMA's darkest cautionary tales. His name is erased from the sports history books, a reminder that uncontrolled rage and violence can destroy not just careers, but lives. His inclusion on the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail is particularly harrowing because of how graphically his crimes expose the dangers of unchecked aggression. Once celebrated for his toughness, War Machine is now caged permanently, his legacy a scar on combat sports. Elizabeth Holmes. Few stories of downfall are as dramatic as that of Elizabeth Holmes, the once celebrated founder of Theranos. In her 20s, Holmes was hailed as the next Steve Jobs, a visionary entrepreneur, promising to revolutionize healthcare with a device that could test blood with just a finger prick. Backed by billions in investments and lauded by world leaders, she was on magazine covers and Forbes' richest self-made women list. But by 2025, Holmes is no longer a Silicon Valley prodigy. She is an inmate serving more than a decade in federal prison for one of the largest frauds in U.S. history. The collapse of Theranos came when whistleblowers and journalists revealed that the company's technology simply did not work. The much-hyped blood testing machine was a sham, producing inaccurate and dangerous results. The exposure, first reported by the Wall Street Journal in 2015, triggered investigations that uncovered years of deception. Investors, patients, and business partners had been misled on a massive scale. In 2022, Holmes was convicted on 4 counts of wire fraud and conspiracy for deceiving investors. She was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months, 135 months in prison. In May 2023, she reported to a federal facility in Bryan, Texas, leaving behind her 2 young children. The Bureau of Prisons lists her release date as August 2032, assuming standard credit for good behavior. Holmes's story is particularly chilling because it wasn't about sudden violence or reckless impulses, it was about calculated deception. She convinced powerful figures from Henry Kissinger to General James Mattis to back her company, and she risked the health of countless patients while building her empire on lies. As of 2025, Holmes remains incarcerated, a far cry from the black turtlenecks and staged charisma that once had the world fooled. She is included on the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail because her case highlights a different kind of crime, white-collar fraud on an epic scale. Unlike others whose violence destroyed individuals, her deceit undermined public trust in science and medicine itself. Holmes's legacy is now a cautionary tale about ambition without ethics. Once celebrated as a female tech pioneer, she is now a convicted felon, her name synonymous with Silicon Valley's greatest scam. By 2025, her prison sentence stands as a reminder that not all crimes spill blood, but the damage can be just as devastating. Mel Hall. In the 1980s and early 1990s, Mel Hall was a name baseball fans knew well. A powerful outfielder, he played for the Chicago Cubs, Cleveland Indians, New York Yankees, and later in Japan. Hall was known for his colorful personality, big bat, and unfiltered confidence. Teammates and fans often described him as charismatic, the kind of athlete who could light up a clubhouse. Yet behind the swagger, darker truths lurked. By 2025, Mel Hall is not remembered for his clutch hits, but for being a convicted predator serving a 45-year prison sentence in Texas. Hall's fall from grace began long after his retirement from Major League Baseball. Following his playing days, he turned to coaching youth sports, particularly basketball for girls' teams. It was in this environment that he preyed on minors, using his status as a former professional athlete to manipulate and exploit. In 2009, Hall was convicted on 3 counts of aggravated sexual assault of a child and 2 counts of indecency with a child. Prosecutors presented harrowing testimony from victims who described how Hall groomed them, often presenting himself as a mentor before crossing into abuse. The youngest was just 12 years old when the abuse began. Evidence revealed that his predatory behavior stretched over many years, hidden in plain sight under the guise of being a respected coach. The judge sentenced Hall to 45 years in prison, a term so severe it all but guarantees he will spend the remainder of his life behind bars. At the time of sentencing, Hall was 48 years old. By 2025, he is in his early 60s, still confined, with his earliest possible release date set for 2054, when he would be nearly 100 years old. For baseball, Hall's conviction was a sobering reminder that athletic glory offers no shield from accountability. His name, once tied to Yankee Stadium and Major League broadcasts, is now synonymous with betrayal and criminality. His inclusion in the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail list is a haunting testament to how some figures use fame and trust as a weapon against the vulnerable. Instead of a hero's legacy, Hall leaves behind a cautionary tale of wasted potential and unforgivable harm. Harvey Weinstein. Few Hollywood figures wielded as much power as Harvey Weinstein. For decades, he was the kingmaker behind Miramax and the Weinstein Company, producing Oscar-winning films like Shakespeare in Love, Pulp Fiction, Good Will Hunting, and The King's Speech. Stars and directors courted his favor, knowing he had the clout to turn films into box office and awards juggernauts. But in 2017, his empire collapsed overnight when decades of sexual abuse and harassment allegations came to light, igniting the #MeToo movement. By 2025, Weinstein is no longer a feared mogul, but an inmate serving a combined 39-year prison sentence. The scope of Weinstein's abuse was staggering. Dozens of women ranging from aspiring actresses to Hollywood A-listers came forward with stories of coercion, harassment, and assault. The accusations painted a chilling portrait of a man who leveraged his power to exploit, intimidate, and silence. For years, his behavior was an open secret in Hollywood, but the industry looked away until the floodgates opened in 2017. Weinstein's first criminal trial took place in New York in 2020, where he was convicted of rape and sexual assault and sentenced to 23 years in prison. In 2022, a Los Angeles jury convicted him on further counts of rape and sexual assault, adding 16 years to his sentence. Both terms run consecutively, leaving him with a virtual life sentence. By 2025, Weinstein is 73 years old, incarcerated in a New York State facility. His health has deteriorated. Reports indicate he struggles with diabetes, heart problems, and mobility issues, but appeals have failed. His projected release date extends into the 2050s, making it highly unlikely he will ever walk free. Weinstein's inclusion on the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail is one of the most symbolic. His fall not only ended his personal career, but also reshaped the global conversation about power, gender, and accountability. Once the most feared and courted man in Hollywood, he now sits in a prison cell, a disgraced figure whose name is forever synonymous with abuse. His downfall stands as a monumental reminder even the most powerful mogul in Hollywood cannot outrun justice forever. Ian Watkins. In the early 2000s, Ian Watkins was the charismatic frontman of the Welsh rock band Lost Prophets. With hits like Last Train Home and Rooftops, the group rose to international fame, selling millions of albums and filling stadiums with fans. Watkins embodied the energy of a rock star, tattooed, edgy, and adored by young audiences who saw him as a voice of rebellion. But behind the music, he harbored a darkness so profound that when it was exposed, it didn't just end his career, it destroyed it forever. By 2025, Watkins is remembered not as a musician, but as one of the most reviled prisoners in the UK. In 2012, Watkins was arrested after police discovered evidence linking him to sexual offenses involving minors. The subsequent investigation uncovered crimes so shocking they made global headlines. Prosecutors revealed that Watkins had not only abused young fans, but had attempted to orchestrate acts that pushed the boundaries of depravity. What stunned the public even further was his fan base. 2 female accomplices helped him facilitate crimes, proving how manipulation and celebrity power can corrupt utterly. In December 2013, Watkins pleaded guilty to 13 sexual offenses, including the attempted rape of a baby, conspiracy to rape children, and possession of child pornography. The judge, calling the case unprecedented in scale and severity, sentenced him to 29 years in prison, with an additional 6 years on extended license, effectively ensuring he will not be eligible for release until the 2040s. Even in prison, Watkins has made headlines. In 2019, he was attacked by fellow inmates after being caught with a contraband phone. Reports in 2023 revealed he was assaulted again during visitation, a stark reminder of how despised he is even among prisoners. By 2025, Ian Watkins remains incarcerated at HM Prison Wakefield, often referred to as Monster Mansion for housing some of the UK's most dangerous criminals. His legacy is irreparably stained. Lost Prophets disbanded immediately after his arrest, and fans destroyed their records in disgust. His inclusion in the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail list represents one of the most extreme downfalls in music history. A man who went from stadium stages to the darkest depths of human behavior, leaving behind nothing but disgrace. Shannon Richardson. Unlike others on this list, Shannon Richardson was never a global superstar. She was a working actress with small credits in shows like The Walking Dead and The Vampire Diaries. Yet in 2013, she gained notoriety not for her acting, but for a shocking crime that placed her name on national headlines, sending letters laced with the deadly poison ricin to then-President Barack Obama, New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and other officials. By 2025, Richardson's short-acting resume is overshadowed entirely by her conviction for domestic terrorism. The case unfolded like a Hollywood thriller. In May 2013, the FBI discovered that 3 threatening letters, each dusted with ricin, had been mailed to political figures. Initially, suspicion fell on Richardson's estranged husband, but investigators soon realized she had attempted to frame him. When confronted, Richardson confessed to ordering castor beans and producing ricin herself, though she claimed she never intended to harm anyone. Authorities dismissed her explanation, pointing to the clear and deliberate targeting of public officials. In December 2013, Richardson pleaded guilty to possessing and producing a biological toxin. The following year, a federal judge sentenced her to 18 years in prison. The sentence reflected both the seriousness of the crime and the potential national security threat her actions posed. Ricin is a deadly substance. Even a few grains inhaled or ingested can be fatal. Her case underscored how someone with minor celebrity status could still shake public confidence with an act of terror. As of 2025, Richardson is serving her sentence at a federal women's prison with her projected release in the early 2030s. She is in her mid-40s with years of incarceration still ahead. Her brief brush with television fame is now little more than a footnote in a career defined by a single catastrophic decision. On the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail, Shannon Richardson stands out because her crime was not rooted in greed abuse or personal violence, but in an act of bioterrorism. Her story is a reminder that even those on the fringes of Hollywood can become infamous when their actions cross into the realm of national security. Mark Rogowski. In the 1980s, Mark Rogowski, better known as Gator, was a skateboarding icon. With his flamboyant style, aggressive tricks, and marketable charisma, he became one of the first professional skateboarders to break into mainstream culture. His posters hung on bedroom walls, his signature skateboards sold worldwide, and his face appeared in magazines as a symbol of the sport's rebellious youth. But behind the fame, Rogowski struggled with personal demons, and by the 1990s, his life spiraled into tragedy. By 2025, Rogowski is no longer remembered as a pioneer of skateboarding, but as a convicted murderer serving a 31-year prison sentence. The turning point came in 1991 when Rogowski confessed to killing Jessica Bergstuen, a 22-year-old woman and friend of his ex-girlfriend. Consumed by anger after a breakup, Rogowski invited Bergstein to his apartment where he assaulted her, locked her in a surfboard bag, and ultimately bludgeoned her to death. He later buried her body in a desert near San Diego. The crime shocked both the skateboarding community and the wider public who had seen Rogowski as one of the sport's brightest stars. Rogowski confessed to the murder weeks later during a religious counseling session. In 1992, he pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to 31 years to life in prison. His case quickly became one of the most notorious examples of how sudden fame, personal instability, and unresolved trauma can collide in disaster. As of 2025, Rogowski remains behind bars at a California state prison. He has appeared before parole boards several times, but has repeatedly been denied release, with officials citing the gravity of his crime and concerns over his rehabilitation. His earliest potential release date is in the early 2030s, but many believe he may never walk free. On the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail, Rogowski's inclusion is especially haunting because of the contrast. He had it all: fame, wealth, and the chance to influence a sport that would later explode globally. Instead, he squandered it in a crime of violence and rage. His story remains a cautionary tale of how fame without stability can end not in glory, but in a prison cell. Joe Exotic. Few figures have embodied eccentric celebrity like Joseph Maldonado Passage, better known as Joe Exotic. With his flamboyant personality, bleached mullet-sequined shirts, and a private zoo filled with tigers, lions, and leopards, he became the unlikely star of Netflix's smash hit Tiger King in 2020. Viewers were captivated by his bizarre world of big cats, country music videos, and bitter rivalries. But beyond the spectacle lay a darker truth. By 2025, Joe Exotic is not just a reality TV anti-hero, but an inmate serving 21 years in federal prison. The downfall came in 2019 when Joe was convicted on multiple charges, including 2 counts of murder for hire for plotting to have animal rights activist Carole Baskin killed, and 17 counts of wildlife crimes, such as illegally killing tigers and selling endangered species. Prosecutors painted a picture of a man consumed by obsession and reckless ambition. At trial, evidence revealed he had tried to pay 2 different individuals thousands of dollars to kill Baskin, his longtime nemesis. Alongside this, his mistreatment of animals, including the killing of 5 healthy tigers, outraged the public. In January 2020, he was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison, later reduced to 21 years after an appeal. Since his incarceration, Joe has tried to maintain his celebrity filing appeals, requesting pardons, and even announcing political campaigns from prison. In 2022, he revealed a cancer diagnosis, which sparked speculation about whether he would survive his sentence. Nonetheless, courts have upheld his conviction, and he remains locked away at a federal prison in Fort Worth, Texas, with a projected release in the early 2040s. By 2025, the public's fascination with Joe Exotic has waned, but not disappeared. His inclusion on the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail highlights a peculiar mix of spectacle and crime. Unlike others on the list who fell quietly into disgrace, Joe's rise and fall played out under the glaring spotlight of reality TV, making his downfall almost theatrical. His story is a modern fable fame built on chaos, destroyed by obsession and confined by justice. The Tiger King now lives in a cage of his own, a bitter irony that ensures his legacy will be forever tied not to big cats or country songs, but to prison walls. Josh Duggar. For years, Josh Duggar was portrayed as the wholesome eldest son of the Duggar family on TLC's hit reality show, 19 Kids and Counting. Raised in a deeply religious household, his public image reflected conservative Christian values, family devotion, and a life built on faith. To viewers, he represented purity and responsibility in a household that prided itself on morality. But behind the polished image, Duggar harbored dark secrets. By 2025, he is no longer a TV star but a convicted felon serving over 12 years in federal prison for crimes that shattered the carefully built Duggar brand. The first cracks appeared in 2015 when past police reports revealed Duggar had molested several underage girls, including some of his own sisters when he was a teenager. The scandal forced TLC to cancel 19 Kids and Counting, though Duggar faced no charges due to the statute of limitations. Still, his public image crumbled, especially when he was also exposed in the Ashley Madison data leak, admitting to marital infidelity. The final blow came in April 2021, when Duggar was arrested on federal charges of receiving and possessing child sexual abuse material, CSAM. Prosecutors described the content as some of the most disturbing they had ever encountered involving the abuse of very young children. During the trial, expert testimony confirmed that the material had been downloaded on Duggar's work computer, with evidence tying him directly to the files. Despite pleas from his family, the jury convicted him in December 2021. In May 2022, Duggar was sentenced to 151 months, 12 years, and 7 months in federal prison, followed by 20 years of supervised release. The judge called the crime extraordinarily serious, rejecting attempts to downplay its severity. His earliest possible release date is October 2032, assuming good behavior. As of 2025, Duggar remains incarcerated in a federal facility in Texas. His wife Anna has stood by him publicly, though his family remains fractured by scandal. His inclusion on the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail highlights the shocking hypocrisy of a man once promoted as a moral role model only to fall as far as possible. His story is a chilling reminder that outward piety can sometimes conceal monstrous truths. Tammy Sytch. In the 1990s, Tammy Lynn Sytch, better known to wrestling fans as Sunny, was hailed as the original WWE diva. With her charisma, beauty, and on-screen presence, she became one of the most popular personalities in the WWF. Now WWE managing top wrestlers and appearing in countless storylines. At her peak, she was among the most downloaded women on the internet, a symbol of wrestling's glamour and attitude era. But fame and fortune eventually gave way to addiction, legal troubles, and tragedy. By 2025, Sytch is not remembered for her wrestling legacy, but as an inmate serving a 17-year prison sentence for DUI manslaughter. Sytch's struggles with substance abuse had been public for decades. Multiple arrests for DUIs and probation violations plagued her post-WWE career. But the most devastating incident came on March 25, 2022 in Ormond Beach, Florida, when Sytch, driving under the influence, crashed into a stopped vehicle at high speed. The collision killed Julian Lassiter, a 75-year-old man. Witnesses and police reports revealed that Sytch was heavily intoxicated at the time of the crash, with a blood alcohol content 3.5 times the legal limit. The incident sparked outrage not only among wrestling fans, but across the broader public, given Sytch's history of DUI arrests. Critics argued she should never have been allowed back behind the wheel. In August 2023, she pleaded no contest to multiple charges, including DUI manslaughter. The judge sentenced her to 17 years in prison, followed by 8 years of probation. As of 2025, Sytch is incarcerated in a Florida prison with her earliest possible release date in the late 2030s. Once celebrated as a trailblazer for women in wrestling, she is now a cautionary tale of how addiction and reckless choices can destroy both personal legacy and innocent lives. Her inclusion in the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail list is particularly tragic. Unlike some whose crimes were rooted in malice or exploitation, Sytch's downfall stems from a cycle of addiction and irresponsibility that culminated in a fatal tragedy. She went from being adored by millions of fans to being reviled as the cause of an innocent man's death. By 2025, Tammy Sytch's story stands as one of the most heartbreaking collapses in wrestling history, a legend of the ring now confined to a cell, forever haunted by the irreversible consequences of her choices. Jared Fogle. In the early 2000s, Jared Fogle became one of the most unlikely celebrities in America. Known as the Subway Guy, Fogle claimed to have lost over 200 pounds by eating Subway sandwiches, transforming him from an overweight college student into a national success story. His inspiring weight loss tale turned into a multi-million-dollar endorsement deal, making him the cheerful face of the brand for more than a decade. He appeared in more than 300 commercials, attended charity events, and even started the Jared Foundation to promote children's health. But behind this carefully crafted image of discipline and inspiration, Fogle hid a disturbing double life. In 2015, everything came crashing down. Federal investigators discovered that Fogle was involved in the possession and distribution of child sexual abuse material, CSAM, and had engaged in illegal sexual acts with minors. Evidence revealed that Fogle had traveled to pay for sex with children as young as 16 and maintained disturbing collections of explicit material. His close association with Russell Taylor, director of the Jared Foundation, further exposed a network of exploitation. The revelations shocked the nation. Fogle, once viewed as a role model for healthy living, was exposed as a predator who used his fame and fortune to fund his crimes. In November 2015, he was sentenced to 15 years and 8 months in federal prison after pleading guilty to possession and illicit sex with minors. He was also fined $175,000 and ordered to pay $1.4 million in restitution to 14 victims. As of 2025, Jared Fogle is serving his sentence at a low-security federal prison in Colorado with a projected release date of 2029. Reports indicate he has tried to keep a low profile behind bars, but other inmates have attacked him on several occasions due to the nature of his crimes. His once iconic role as Subway Guy has been permanently erased. Subway swiftly cut all ties with him, and his name now lives in infamy. On the list of 36 celebrities still rotting in jail, Jared Fogle represents one of the most jarring betrayals of public trust. He wasn't just a celebrity. He was a figure associated with children's health and wellness. That betrayal magnified the outrage, making his downfall one of the most disgraceful in recent memory. Gary Glitter. In the 1970s, Gary Glitter, born Paul Gadd, was a glam rock sensation. With his glittery outfits, stomping anthems like Rock and Roll Part 2 and flamboyant stage presence, he sold millions of records worldwide and became a household name in Britain and beyond. But by the late 1990s, Glitter's name had become synonymous not with music, but with some of the most reviled crimes imaginable. By 2025, he remains a disgraced figure imprisoned for multiple child sexual abuse convictions. Glitter's first major scandal broke in 1997, when he was arrested in the UK for possessing thousands of indecent images of children. He served 4 months in prison but attempted to revive his career afterward. Instead, his criminal behavior escalated abroad. In the 2000s, Glitter was convicted in Vietnam for committing obscene acts with underage girls, serving nearly 3 years in prison. The most damning trial came later. In 2015, Glitter was convicted in the UK of multiple child sex offenses, including attempted rape, indecent assault, and unlawful sexual intercourse with girls as young as 12. The judge sentenced him to 16 years in prison, calling his crimes appalling and noting how he exploited his fame to prey on the vulnerable. In 2023, Glitter was briefly released on parole after serving half of his sentence, but was quickly returned to prison for breaching release conditions, sparking outrage among the public. His actions destroyed any remaining legacy radio stations, banned his music sports arenas, stopped using his songs, and his name became shorthand for celebrity corruption. By 2025, Gary Glitter is still incarcerated in the UK, an aging and disgraced figure with no hope of redemption. He is in his early 80s, and even if released in the future, he is unlikely ever to live outside prison walls again without being hounded by public anger. His inclusion on the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail list highlights one of the darkest sides of celebrity culture, how fame can be weaponized to lure and exploit victims. Glitter's story is not just about personal downfall, but about how an entire generation of fans had to reconcile their childhood music idols with horrific truths. Austin Jones. In the mid-2010s, Austin Jones was a rising star on YouTube. With millions of views on his pop covers, original songs, and collaborations, he built a fan base of young teens who adored his soft voice and boy-next-door charm. To many, he was a digital-era pop idol, but beneath his clean-cut persona was a disturbing reality. By 2025, Jones is not remembered for music at all, but for his conviction on federal child exploitation charges that destroyed both his life and his fans' trust. In 2017, federal investigators arrested Jones after discovering he had coerced underage girls, some as young as 14, into producing explicit videos for him. He targeted his fans, directly manipulating their admiration into compliance. Court documents revealed that Jones instructed the victims in detail on what to do and pressured them with the weight of his celebrity status. The revelations were devastating. Jones had positioned himself as a safe, approachable figure in the YouTube community, yet he was exploiting the very audience that had elevated him. In 2019, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of child pornography and was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, followed by 8 years of supervised release. The judge condemned his actions as a calculated betrayal of trust, noting that Jones's fame made his crimes even more damaging. By 2025, Jones is in his 30s and still serving his sentence. His earliest release date is expected in the late 2020s, but his career is gone forever. Once a rising star in the digital age, he is now a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked influence online. His name appears on the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail list as a stark reminder that internet fame carries responsibility and abuse of that power carries devastating consequences. Jen Shah. When Jen Shah burst onto the reality TV scene as one of the stars of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, she was larger than life. Known for her lavish parties, designer clothes, and fiery personality, Shah embodied the glitz and drama that made the franchise so addictive. But beneath the extravagant image was a dark truth. Shah was secretly orchestrating a massive telemarketing fraud scheme that preyed on the elderly and vulnerable. By 2025, she is serving a 6.5-year federal prison sentence for wire fraud. The scheme involved selling phony business services to people, often retirees, who believed they were investing in legitimate opportunities. Prosecutors described it as a heartless operation designed to squeeze money out of those least able to afford it. Shah's flamboyant TV persona, flaunting wealth and power, became a bitter symbol of how that money had been stolen. In July 2022, Shah pleaded guilty to wire fraud charges. During her sentencing in January 2023, the judge emphasized the deliberate nature of the crime and the irreparable harm caused to hundreds of victims. Shah was ordered to pay $6.5 million in restitution and forfeit luxury items from designer handbags to jewelry that had been purchased with fraudulent funds. By 2025, Shah is incarcerated in a Texas federal prison. Despite her attempts to maintain some celebrity status behind bars, writing letters, planning a post-release rebrand, her reputation lies in ruins. The once dominant figure on Bravo is now one more fallen star. Her inclusion in the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail list underscores how greed and deception can unravel even the flashiest reality TV lives. Allison Mack. For nearly a decade, Allison Mack was known as Chloe Sullivan, the witty best friend of Clark Kent on the hit TV series Smallville. Fans adored her character, and Mack seemed poised for long-term Hollywood success. But in a shocking twist, she became entangled in NX4TM, a so-called self-help organization, later exposed as a dangerous cult. By 2025, Mack is serving a prison sentence for her role in coercing women into sexual slavery for NX4TM's leader, Keith Raniere. NX4TM marketed itself as a professional development group, attracting celebrities, executives, and ambitious young professionals. Behind closed doors, however, members were manipulated, branded, and forced into submission. Mack was not just a member, she became one of Raniere's most trusted lieutenants. Prosecutors revealed that she helped recruit women into the group where they were subjected to abuse under the guise of empowerment. In 2018, Mack was arrested and charged with sex trafficking, conspiracy, and forced labor. During her trial, disturbing details emerged. Mack allegedly convinced recruits that joining a secret sisterhood would make them stronger, while in reality, it was a system of coercion and abuse. Facing overwhelming evidence, Mack pleaded guilty in 2019 to racketeering and racketeering conspiracy. In 2021, she was sentenced to 3 years in prison, along with a $20,000 fine and community service requirements. Though her sentence is shorter than many others on this list, the damage to her reputation is permanent. Once a beloved actress, Mack is now synonymous with cult manipulation and betrayal. By 2025, Mack is nearing the end of her prison term, but her name remains on the 36 celebrities still rotting in jail list because of the chilling nature of her crimes. She represents a unique type of downfall, not driven by greed or violence alone, but by blind loyalty to a destructive leader. Her story is perhaps one of the most unsettling proof that even those we idolize on screen can become instruments of real-life horror. From fallen moguls to disgraced athletes and shattered idols, these 36 stories prove that fame offers no escape from justice. Their legacies, once built on power, talent, and influence, now rot behind bars, leaving only cautionary tales. But here's the question. Do you believe these celebrities deserve a chance at redemption, or should their crimes forever define them? Tell us which case shocked you the most in the comments. And don't forget, subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence for more unbelievable revelations about the untold truths behind the spotlight. The debate doesn't end here. It starts with you.